drafts. They are live on the website. You can see how these mock drafts played out. For those of you in the room, there are cheat sheets that there will be a test on at the end of this evening. But you can see how these drafts played out. There were 2. We did ADP on them. And there will be a series of On the Corner podcasts to recap mock draft 1. So you'll be able to hear more in depth into the whole draft, including the hitters. Yes, Nick will begrudgingly talk about hitters. There were some moderate boos throughout the crowd. But we're going to use these drafts to talk about kind of the entire pitching landscape in 2024. The early rounds, the middle rounds, the late rounds, the flyers, the guys you shouldn't draft, all of the above. So, Nick, I mean, you were part of one of these mock drafts. You know, what was your feeling as you were going through the draft? I know you have your strategy, you have your preferred way of drafting pitching, but did you find yourself feeling any differently as you were looking at the 2024, pitching landscape?
No. What's actually really fun is, as you mentioned, I have a strategy always of waiting on pitching. I just kind of feel there are so many better pitchers than hitters later on in drafts, and also I play to my strengths where I want to get better hitters in drafts because I don't want to deal with that on the waiver wire in season, and I feel better about my own ability to find starters in season. But it kind of feels like you have to go hitters more in this one in particular, which means everyone is waiting a bit more. We're going to talk a little bit more about that soon. But what I'm really excited about today is I think it's one of the things we overlook a lot in discussion of the next season is how we actually formulate a team inside of a draft. What should we be thinking round to round, and understanding the, to use an Ariel Cohen term, hotspots of the draft. Where should we be actually targeting for the most value? And that's what's so fun about these mocks. You get an idea of like, oh, wait, hold on. I can get someone like that in the 10th, 11th round. That means maybe I should be shifting to someone else in my snake drafts. And I do want to remind everybody, this is the most standard of mock drafts, like 23 rounds, 5x5. Yahoo settings, 12 teams, exactly. So it's not your NFBC 15-team stuff. So it's a little bit shallower, which does change, of course, the strategy of when you attack certain things. Excited to kind of go over all that
this mock draft is a vanilla ice cream everyone in this room can enjoy. In terms of, so you mentioned waiver wire.
Yes.
First of all, you know that there's no waiver wire on a mock draft. Like it's just a mock draft. That's
I know, but you got to act as if you have a waiver wire, and you got to plan for that inside of your draft.
And speaking of waiver wire, in the list, which you published recently, which is way too many words, 40,000 words, it's incredible. But there are tables there about the players you could have drafted late or picked up on the waiver wire throughout this year. I know you really enjoy talking about these guys, especially one of them in particular. So if you want to talk about what you can get late in drafts and why you don't, need to fill out your starting rotation to like the most perfect execution in your draft, please. This is your time.
I guess I'll list these. This is everyone last year in 2023. Every single player I'm going to list was drafted of an ADP after 290, which means if you're in your standard leagues, that's not drafted. 276. So that's Zach Eflin, Justin Steele, Mitch Keller, Gavin Williams, Tanner Bybee, Eduardo Rodriguez, Nick Pivetta, Bobby Miller, Kenta Maeda, Brian Bayo, James Paxton, Tarek Skubal, Yusei Kikuchi, Tyler Wells, Bailey Ober, Aaron Savali, Michael Waka, Clark Schmidt, Kyle Bradish, Yuri Perez, and there are other waiver wire pickups as well, like Michael King and Reese Olson, Christopher Sanchez, Bryce Elder, Griffin Canning, Kyle Hendricks, so on and so forth that helped you. I don't think I missed anyone from that first table, did I?
No, there's definitely not anyone you missed because I don't need to give you any more reason to talk about. And this guy that you 100% missed, you skipped over him.
I don't know what you're talking
Everyone
about.
at home knows who I'm talking about. Everyone here knows who I'm talking about. We can all say it out loud. Which Kansas City Royals pitcher did Nick not mention? I love everyone here for not saying Cole Reagans. Thank you all so much for not falling into that obvious trap. Nick, which pitcher did you miss?
I know, it's Cole Reagans, of course.
Okay, cool. Let's move on. So those are all the pitchers you could have gotten late in drafts. You could have gotten off the waiver wire. A lot of these pitchers, maybe someone in your league drafted at the end of their draft, and they probably dropped them at some point in the season. The point being is don't go into your drafts thinking, I need to build the perfect pitching staff today. Because you won't. Because no one does. Because that's not how drafts work, right?
No.
You have to aim for as much upside as you can. Try to put yourself in the best position that you can. And then be ready all year long to find your Nick Pavettas and your Bobby Millers and your Cole Reaganses on the waiver wire.
And
Is there anything else we need to touch on before we move?
Nick Pivetta and Bobby Miller and Cole Reagans. I feel like, Bobby Miller's the odd one out. I'm just kidding.
I am a Dodger fan. Nick, try to lean into that. What we're going to talk about, the pitching landscape, as you do your draft, typically in snake drafts, you go in chronological order and you pick from 1 to 276 in that order. So we're going to talk about the draft sort of in that order. We'll talk about the early part of the draft. And one thing that jumped out to me, we're talking about the top 50 picks, basically the first 4 rounds. One thing that jumped out to me looking at our mock drafts, and for those of you in the room, you can basically see from Spencer Strider to Logan Webb were basically drafted within the first 50 picks. That's 8 pitchers. In our 2 mock drafts, we had 8 pitchers go in the first 4 rounds. 8 starting pitchers, I should specify. Any guesses in the crowd? How many starting pitchers? And I'm going to include Shohei Ohtani because in Yahoo leagues where he was starting pitcher only, he was drafted in the top 50. How many starting pitchers were drafted in the top 50 last year, March of 2023? Any guesses? No, you know the answer. Anyone who doesn't know the answer, how many starting pitchers were drafted? We got 21. It's a pretty good guess. So that helps. Anyone else want to try to get any closer? Okay. Wrong way. There were 16 starting pitchers drafted in the top 50 in March of 2023. In this draft, there were 8. I'm not great at math, but that's half. And by the way, so of those 8 pitchers this year that were drafted in the top 50, only 4 of them were also drafted in the top 50 last year. So most of the pitchers who were drafted in the top 50 last year, 12 out of 16, are not being drafted in the top 50 this year. Now, let me ask you something, Nick. Do you think that's because we're all jaded from the bad experiences we had last year drafting starting pitchers? Let me name off some of the people that you might have drafted in your first 4 rounds. We can talk about disappointing performances like Dylan Cease, Shane Bieber, Alek Manoah. We can talk about, people that we shouldn't talk about like Julio Urias. Or we can talk about people who got injured and missed a lot of the year, like Jacob deGrom and Shane McClanahan. That's just some of the guys who are not being drafted. So are we jaded from drafting those guys, or is there something else at play with the pitching landscape?
I think there's a lot here. Hitters, I think, are really good in the first 5 rounds, and then it falls off hard. And I think looking at that versus the breadth of the landscape of pitching, those guys stand out so much more. Than all these starting pitchers. Also, I do think that our pitcher list mocks do lean toward weighting pitching more so than general ADP. I also think there's a larger range than we normally see, around, I'd say, 10 to 35, 40 when it comes to starting pitchers. I think I called it last year the Aces of Dubs, which was the top 22 starters. And I felt like that was the crew that you had to get in on. That extends so much larger, I think, this year. And because of that, it means that the top guys aren't as important. There really isn't as much of a space between them. Sure, you have like Cole and Strider, obviously. Castillo, Wheeler, Gallen, Burns. Totally get that. And I think as we get closer to it, in ours, we had them go in the 4th round. A lot of them, Gallen, Wheeler, Castillo, Burns. And I feel like that's going to come back up a little bit. But I'm not too surprised that there isn't a massive push for the top 10 inside the top 50. And then after that, it just gets this big mess where anyone can do anything. Like, where do you want to put Bobby Miller or Yuri Perez or Zach Eflin or Grayson Rodriguez and George Kirby and Tarek Skubal? There are a lot of different ways to cut that one. And because of that, I think it's all going to get pushed down after that core 8 or so.
Yeah, and one of the things, so you touched on, both these mock drafts were done by pitcherless staffers. Whether we like to admit it or not, we are all in some way influenced by you and the work that you put out. And one of the things, for all of you staffers who are listening to the podcast, I just want you to know I will have your back. If Nick pressures you into anything you don't want to do and draft any pitchers you don't want to draft, you can message me. Anyway, so one of the things that you mentioned repeatedly is weight on pitching. And some people, like myself, when I play in leagues with you, know that I have to do the opposite because I'm never going to get a pitcher on the waiver wire, and so I'll draft 4 pitchers to start my draft because there's no other way I'm going to win that league. But most people do kind of fall into, like following the crowd of waiting on pitching. And unfortunately, we're recording this podcast on November 2nd. We're doing this on the first night of First Pitch Arizona, which is amazing. But we haven't there's drafts to be had still this weekend. We could have, there's data that we'll be able to gather this weekend from people who aren't, 100% within the pitcherless ecosphere. So we could see much different data in terms of where starting pitchers are drafted. That's definitely something that can happen. And I had a train of thought and I fully lost it. So if you want to jump in, never mind. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
I remembered.
I wanted to mention that for years in our Legacy League, Rick Graham, who's here right now, of course, our senior fantasy analyst, running the reliever team for a long time.
And presented earlier today.
And it was fantastic.
Ooh,
yes.
Good job, Rick.
Amazing job, Rick.
I really hope all of you at home can hear the clown horn that is in this crowd.
Yeah, I'll explain later. Come talk to me why there's a clown horn in this room. But it was a famous thing. 3 out of straight 4 years or something like that. 3 out of 4 years, it was Rick Graham and John Metzelaar in the finals against each other. And John, every year, as the former hitter list writer, would always go 4 straight starters or so. It would be like 1 or 2 hitters and then 4 straight starters to zig while everyone else zagged. Mm-hmm. So I completely understand that strategy. And I really do think that it's about leaning into your strengths as much as possible. Rick was in this mock. You took Garrett Cole and then Walker Buehler, 2nd and 7th round. So not the same exact strategy as John, but I can see that working out for some. I mean, Jake Crumpler took 4 straight from the 5th and 8th rounds. So this can certainly work.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is a mock draft. No one has to play this out. And so no one has to compete with you on the waiver wire for this. But I want to ask you something. So, Nick, I know what your answer will be for yourself.
Oh, okay, great.
But for everyone that's listening, for the people that aren't talking about 30 starting pitchers a day every day of the year, say for Thursdays and Mondays when there's fewer starting pitchers to talk about, if I asked you, they should go into their drafts wanting X amount of your top X number of starting pitchers.
Sure.
Last year you said aces of dubs.
Yeah.
Top 22. What's that? Where does that cut off for you, and how many of those starting pitchers should the people who are not talking about pitching every single day, where should they be targeting? Where should they be looking?
Okay, first and foremost, the best thing you can do, at least that I do for myself, is cover all 30 pitchers every night so that I can be super aware of the trends that are happening in season. And I say this often, your drafts are so exciting. You've been studying for 5-6 months for this here it is, it's draft day. I'm going to get the best team.
Or 5-6 days.
Yeah, there it is. And
or 5-6 hours, right. As Astrid
But the anticipation of that team, that's yours, is such an important thing. However, what we do at the end of it is I don't say like, okay, you have Zach Gallen, I have Logan Webb, or Corbin Burns, or Luis Castillo, or whatever it is. I say, oh, you have an SP1, I have an SP1. You have an SP2, I have an SP2. The draft itself is just about formulating a team that is a good enough foundation, and how you actually win is understanding the trends of the season as they happen. So I do these SP roundups, and that to me is just my homework to make sure I stay on top of it. And fortunately, I tell you what I think. It's all right there. So you don't need to do that work. You can just kind of read that. And if you follow along, you'll find that you can make those changes in season quicker than just kind of, just on your own through the season. Because let me just do that work for you. So the reason I mention that is my whole theory is you have to have a fair number of pitchers that you just do not drop the entire year. It's so important. Instead of chasing for that volatile, high upside pitcher, instead go for the one that is going to be above average the entire year, and that you feel so confident. You don't feel that they're going to pitch to a level that has you drop them. Now, I'd say the one pitcher that has broken that rule. Oh my gosh, Jake just got me more water. No, I didn't. Yes, he did, and he's the kindest. He is the best staff for a pitcher list right now. Understand that I think the only player that has broken that rule truly is Alek Manoah, which no one is going to tell you that they said, oh, you're going to drop Alek Manoah a month into the season. Absolutely not. It would have had to be injury, and it wasn't, and that was the weirdest thing. But if you go into the draft and say, look, I generally say 4 guys that I'm like, I do not think the entire year I'm going to drop. That's what you should be going for. And then after that, look back at all your fantasy teams. How many of the guys from your draft after your first 4 do you actually hold on to through the year? It is very small, that number. That is a very low number. So draft in that way. That's when you take chances. Do not go into this saying, oh, I know I need to get 120, 140 innings out of this. Like, no, if I'm going to get quality innings I expect out of the gate and I can make a decision, fantastic. The last thing that you want is what I call a hipster, headache-inducing pitcher stifling the entire roster. Okay? Those are the guys you don't know if you should be holding on to them or not. And when you know, you blink, and all of a sudden you're stuck with a 134 whip for the entire year. They just pulled you down the entire season. Yes, that happened to me. That was Jeff Smarsden, and that's why he's loose lips to me.
That happened to me this year, and it was Dylan Cease.
Yep.
I was so mesmerized by the strikeout totals
That
I forgot that I lost ratios every single week.
And the thing is, and we go more into those strategies of what makes Dylan Cease that volatile, right? Who are those guys? And I get really hyped a lot about certain pitchers, especially around my ranks about 50 or so. But the thing is, those are the ones that are after that core 4 guys. And I'm hyped about it. I also will say, you know what, that one didn't work out. Let's move on. Reed Detmer's a perfect example this year. Reed Detmer's did not work out, and that stunk. He was good for a moment. He lost his velocity. He lost his slider command. We move on. But he wasn't... should not have been considered as that core 4. I might have even messed up and thought of him as a core 4. That should not have been the case, right? That's the kind of guy we got to make sure that we don't have for our drafts. So how many is that right now? I would say that's about the end of tier 4. If I really want to extend it, it's around there. That is around 39 or so. I don't expect to be in a situation where I really want to drop Tanner Bybee or Gavin Williams. You can even make a case as the end of tier 5 this year. But I've actually adjusted this already. I've already moved Lucas Giolito out. If you guys have been listening to the On the Corner podcast with Eric, we've been going through all of them. I actually don't know if this one is out yet, but it's probably around Chris Bassett territory. Like, if you get Chris Bassett on your team, you probably are not dropping him the entire year. You're just like, okay, that's fine as my SP4. So if you go into it with that mentality, then great. I just get 4 guys that I really like. Obviously, make sure that I have team construction, that I don't have 0 wins and I don't have 0 strikeouts or so. And then you have fun. Then you just kind of take all the fun shots you want at the end of your drafts. Then you go and have a great time on the waiver wire and read the rest SP Roundup, guys. That's what you just got to do. Just read the SP Roundup. You're fine. That's it. Don't do anything else.
Okay, so for the people in this room and for the people listening to the podcast, so like 8 minutes ago when I asked you the question,
I know, Miles.
The question was what X amount do you want of your top X? So
4 of 39.
4 of 39.
No, wait, 4 of 45. I'm sorry.
4 of 45.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So wait on pitching, everyone, is what Nick's advice to both himself and you is. 4 of Nick's top 45 on the list. Now, the bright side of that, and we'll see this in the ADP, your list and ADP don't line up. And so getting 4 of the top 45 you should be able to get more than 4 of the top 45 because a lot of those guys that you have in the top 45 are available very late.
Yeah. And what was interesting is last year, like Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez were at the bottom end of that. And there are a lot of drafts. I got them and Jesus Luzardo in there too. Like, I think it was like 12th, 13th, 14th rounds. And that was like, okay, this is the hot spot, right? And you'll find that, that doesn't need to be your 4. You've already gotten 4, and there's Pablo Lopez. You're like, okay, fine, I'll make that my 5. Now I have 5 I trust. This is even better. If one gets injured, then I'm okay. I've got 4. You'll find that happens a lot. And I think if anyone does a mock draft right now, if you go for 2 studs early, like 2nd or 3rd round, you'll find yourself wanting to take a pitcher and feeling like I have too many already. So I really implore everybody, take one moment to take one mock draft and figure this out for yourself. See if that flow is there for you. And I think you'll be surprised.
I mean, nothing to add there. Really, we just got to talk about now how
actual
you break
pitchers.
Actual pitchers and breaking out your draft. And so we're going to, like I said, talk about the pitching landscape sort of throughout the draft. So we'll focus first on the top 8 pitchers that were drafted all within the first 4 rounds. We'll break it up a little bit. I want to talk about just kind of the first 3 pitchers because they were kind of in a world of their own for the most part in our drafts. 2 of them drafted early in the 2nd round. 1 of them drafted early in the 3rd round. In our mock drafts, it was Spencer Strider as the first starting pitcher off the board at around pick 14. Garrett Cole as the second starting pitcher off the board at pick 15. And then Kevin Gausman, third starting pitcher off the board at pick 26 Nick, how do you feel about just these first 3 starting pitchers being drafted basically within the first 2 rounds?
Strider and Cole, fine. Yeah, I get that completely. I don't need to talk more about them. But Gausman is just... He had a 124 whip in 2022. And what do we all say? We're like, oh, yeah, there's no way this is going to happen again. It was a 363 BABIP. We know this. This is ridiculous. This is historic. Not going to happen again. Well, yeah, his BABIP came down to like 325 or something. And guess what? He had a 118 whip. That's bad. In your 12-teamers, if you have a 118 whip, that is bringing down your whip, believe it or not. And especially when it's over as many innings as Gausman throws. That's from your SP1 in the 3rd round, a guy who's actually not benefiting your whip for the season. That can't happen. And it's possible it gets better again. His walk rate did rise to 7% from 4% the previous year. But the fastball is still hittable. I don't know what to say about it. It got a little bit better, but actually, believe it or not, at a higher ICR rate, that is ideal contact rate. Essentially, it's a better way of saying, look, when guys make contact with this fastball, is it good for them or not? He had a higher rate in 2023. So I don't believe that Gausman has figured that out. And the idea of Gausman having like a 105 whip that you would want to pay a 3rd round price for, no. You should not expect that from Gausman. He's a 2-pitch pitcher where one of them gets hit well. Like, that is not something I go for. I would not be touching Gausman.
That makes perfect sense. And I mean, we're far from the days when I used to tell people with Kevin Gausman, don't bother drafting him. He'll be on the waiver wire at the end of April because he sucks the first month. We're far from those days. Gausman has really come into his own. And I mean, you still have him in your top 10.
Oh, I have him down to 7 now.
Yeah. But this is still someone you think very highly of. It's just being the 3rd pitcher off the board, end of round 2, a little high of a price. The next group of pitchers are all people who are firmly in round 3. We've seen them go as high as early round 3. We've seen them go as low as early round 4. So these next 4 pitchers are Luis Castillo, Corbin Burns, Zach Wheeler, and Zach Gallen. Our ADP put them within 2 drafts. Keep in mind, sample size small. Kept them within picks 33 and 39. Any thoughts on this group of 4 pitchers?
No, I mean, these are the guys I expect to go high in it. I was surprised that it was 4th round for mine at least, which
early round 4.
Early round 4, but still, it's. Man, I was just shocked. Like, Zach Wheeler is just so consistently good. It's such a fun fastball. I mean, we have Kyle Bland here. He'll tell you all about the PLV of the 4-seamer. It's one of the best ones out there. I think actually Zach Wheeler had the highest PLV of any starting pitcher this year. He's just so consistently good. And why wouldn't you want that? Luis Castillo has a new 4-seamer, and it's amazing. And I think it was the number 1 swing strike rate 4-seamer among starting pitchers, and that's so good. Even Corbin Burns in his down year, anyone that rostered Corbin Burns was having anxiety the entire time, and yet he had a phenomenal season. So, yeah, all of these guys, I'm here for kind of not Gallen at this spot. I like him. I think he has a really good situation of 4-seamers low, and it's really hard to differentiate for pitchers that 4-seamer low with his curveball and changeup, especially with such high low location on his curveball and changeup that are both elite, which is great. He changed it around a lot this year. There was sometimes he was going upstairs a ton, trying to do like the Blake Snell blueprint of getting those high fastballs. I think it's all kind of weird, and I don't think that he's as overwhelming as some of the other guys here. However, it's a long track record of success, a lot of volume. It's very safe, and I love going after safe early on. So I have no real problem with that.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, Gallen was the last drafted pitcher of this entire group of 8. Now, I'm sure there's guys in this next group of pitchers that you'd say I'd rather have them than Zach Gallen, but it wasn't like people were picking Gallen over Wheeler or Gallen over Castillo. They were still getting Gallen sort of as like the last pitcher sort of this grouping. This next group of pitchers we're going to talk about, this shows like kind of where people really start targeting pitchers. I think in both mock drafts, there were heavy pitcher runs during this stretch. This is going to be basically from the beginning of round 5 to the end of round 6. So it's a 24-pick stretch. Keep in mind, I just talked about 7 starting pitchers in the first 40 picks. I am now going to talk about I believe, 12 starting pitchers in the next 24 picks. So rounds 5 and 6 right now, hotbeds for starting pitchers. And I'm curious, Nick, as I'm going to rattle off these names for everyone at home and here in the room, but I'm curious if there's any, 2 pitchers that really stand out to you in this grouping. So starting at pick 50, we have Logan Webb, Pablo Lopez at 54, Tyler Glasnow, George Kirby. They round out basically the 5th round for sure. And then Blake Snell, Tarek Skubal, Max Fried, Aaron Nola, Freddie Peralta, Grayson Rodriguez, and Walker Buehler are all being drafted more or less in round 6 at the moment. And you can even see, for those of you in the room, on the right-hand side of your printout where they, where they went in each mock, there's still some volatility, but there's still more or less in round 6. So it's pretty consistent for these pitchers. I just named 12. 2 of them stand out for you?
Yeah, obviously it's Logan Webb and Blake Snell. It is so rare. I mean, look, we have the perfect example in front of us. It's Dylan Cease. We just had a guy who had a massive walk rate, who had a fantastic season. Everyone thinks, okay, this is who he is. This is it. It's not replicated. How could we see this coming? Blake Snell has such an incredible year. He throws so few mistakes inside the zone, and he's towing this unreal line of just enough strikes to not get so burned by it. His SIP per 9 fell to under 6, which is usually very unsustainable. And it's just not, you can't buy this is going to stick around. Also, yes, what do we got? We've got the
Eno, there is a microphone right here.
Yeah,
I have an extra
Here
chair. What do you have to say about Blake Snell, Enos Harris?
Yeah, what do you got?
Whatever thoughts you have, don't say them until you're at the microphone.
So this is First Pitch Arizona. The best part is Eno coming in randomly with a beer in his hand. We've got the clown horn going. We've got snaps in the crowd.
Baseball with you people.
What? Get out of here. Oh my God,
amazing.
it's Eno. How'd you get here?
This is what I want to raise up is
Yeah,
the possibility that, and I do this too, is you're penalizing too much. You're penalizing too much for the things he can't do. Like, he's still going to be all right. Like, even Cease this year returned positive value on like the worst year. And there's so many other guys that, I don't know, 33, dude. I think 33 is too low. That's all I'm saying.
That's where that's where Nick has Blake Snell ranked.
So,
do you have where like Blake Snell, is he top 20 for you? Is he top 25? Like, how much are we quibbling with Blake Snell's ranking?
But I always get in trouble with buying guys who give me fewer innings and being like super happy with like 120 good innings.
Right.
Tyler Glasnow.
Well,
this
I mean,
year.
that's okay. So there's an argument to be had of like why I have Tyler Glasnow so high is because I don't believe he's going to get the volume. But in a 12-teamer, 120 of quality is way better than 120 of quality.
So maybe Snell,
right?
I think.
But here's the problem with Snell, and this is something that I do in my rankings. This is just a personal annoyance. Is I don't want to deal with guys that make me anxious. Blake Snell makes me anxious. As a fantasy manager, we've seen it for 3 straight years now. His April and May are just not great, and you just don't know what to do. What do you like?
Should you
What
drop
do I
him?
do? It's like, do I hold on or not? We had to wait till July one year. I mean, of course, this year he went off, but he went off to I think it was a 120 ERA across like 20 starts or so.
Yeah, but I
And-
wouldn't have dropped him. I wouldn't
Well,
have dropped him.
No,
and
I understand.
And I would have
But-
profited.
Okay, we can acknowledge at least that like this was a peak season, right? We
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
it was
yeah,
a peak
yeah.
season, right? Peak
He's gonna win the
season,
Cy Young. Like,
Cy
that's not a
Young.
peak season.
right? 180 innings from
I'm not
Snell.
arguing he's going to do better. No,
Congratulations,
Well, that's
Blake
the-
Snell.
I'm
That's the
saying
point of
he's
that.
going to do worse, but less worse than you're saying he's going to.
Right. Well, no, so at the rank of 33, you're absolutely. I actually agree with you. I think at the end of the year, probably, but the 33 takes into account of my own sanity, and like as a fantasy manager, how happy am I rostering this player through the year, and what are the tough decisions I'm going to have to make? And I think the guys ahead, at least I'm going to have a clearer picture.
Give me
about this.
32 and 31. Let me hear. I was looking at it back there.
So I grouped. What I generally do is I group similar kinds of guys. For
Right,
my
so
ranks.
give me some would
so,
you rathers.
So what?
yeah.
Would you rather?
So I want to say.
Wait. Can I? I'm the host. Can I? Would you
yeah,
rather?
please.
All right.
What's the whole
Let's
tier
start.
here for?
No, I'm
Sorry,
the
I had
host.
to sing.
It's a tier.
Eno.
here we
Would
go.
you rather?
Yeah.
Blake Snell or Brian Wu?
Blake Snell.
Would you
I like
rather?
Brian Wu.
Would you
You
rather
like Brandon Rule, then, don't you?
Blake Snell or Logan Gilbert?
Oh, all right. well.
Sorry,
That's
to be
good.
to be
That's
to be
like
fair,
right around
hold
the
on.
Give me a couple more guys.
So to be fair, I didn't list 32 and 31. I was trying to find as quickly as I could where in tier 4 you have Blake Snell. So it sounds like we're right around that.
Yeah.
So
we're not far apart.
Blake,
No,
Blake
he should be 31, not 33.
No. Whoa, hold on.
So I debated this one a lot. I think the really close one. I think the aggressive one I've seen is people aren't on the same page with me. Is I have Shane Baz at 29. Because
That's amazing.
Yeah, Blake Snell and
Yeah.
Shane Baz.
But I think Shane Baz.
No, that's amazing.
I think
That's
Shane
too
Baz
much.
is.
No,
I think,
you're getting ahead of yourself.
I think
Okay, so
Shane
Blake-
Baz's
so
four-seamer
Eno
and
says-
slider are incredible.
Eno says
I know.
Blake,
No. I'm
absolutely
not saying
elite.
he's not good.
Right.
I'm saying he'll give you like 75 innings.
I
So
don't know
Eno
about
says
that.
Blake Snell
Tommy John
over Shane
Honeyman.
Baz.
Tommy John Honeyman.
No, I don't think that exists anymore.
What
Okay.
happened?
I'm not sure of it.
Blake Snell. Blake
Some
Snell.
guys come back and some guys don't. and
Okay.
Nobody comes back and gives you a bunch of innings.
All the time.
Not like. No, it's always
Okay,
the first
Blake
year
Snell.
they come
We're
back.
comparing it
it's-
to Blake
it's-
Snell, though.
The first year they come back, it's fewer innings than you expect.
Yeah.
And it's the second year. Sorry. This
No,
is
it's
your.
a live-
Oh my
No,
God.
stay here.
No, you're doing your show.
This is the best.
I'm sorry.
Blake.
say sorry.
Blake
This is
Snell
what
or
we want.
Blake Snell or Brandon Woodruff.
No.
No. That's
He's
who's.
hurt out for the entire year. This was written before he was out the
Yeah,
entire
we were
year.
counting on you back there too.
Yeah. It was before he was out.
So,
like
so Brandon Woodruff, everyone. That's what
Cal
I'm hearing.
Bradish.
Draft Brandon Woodruff.
So like these are the close ones for me. So like Brian Woob, Bryce Miller, Cal Bradish, and Blake Snell and Justin Steele.
I have him over Justin Steele. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do too.
He does too.
I might even.
Look at
I
that.
don't
You
like
guys
Justin
agree.
Steele.
I have Blake Snell over Kyle Bradish, and I was the.
Yeah, I have it
I
neck
wasn't
and neck.
the Kyle Bradish guy. There was a lot of people on him.
I'm neck and neck.
I was a Kyle Bradish
The
guy.
reason I put Kyle Bradish higher, a couple reasons. One, I think the Orioles situation is great for him. I also think that Kyle Bradish, best pitch is a slider. Surprised at how well he was able to throw strikes with his curveball, threw about 15% this year. I think that goes up. And what he did is he removed the thing that was so down
So
on
he's
Kyle
like
Bradish.
a really good Aaron Savali.
He's yes, absolutely. And also,
I love him.
The
by
thing
the
about
way.
Aaron Savali too.
I love both of those people, but they're like.
But like
they're
Savali doesn't
30s
have a
and
slider
35s,
that
I think.
Savali has, right? And and Bradish did this what Savali did, which is pull back as a four-seamer and pull back the sinker, right? Because that four-seamer is terrible. And then he's like, fine, I'll stop throwing as much. And what do you know? Success came, right? So I can buy into Bradish getting better with his curveball and slider and just be more consistently productive for you. Snell, I mean, I probably am going to raise Snell before the start of the year. It's just I see a peak season for a guy that still walks a ton of guys, contract year, who also doesn't have a track history of good health, and I have no idea if I'm going to be happy on May 1st. And I'm going to be freaking out as a manager. I kind of see all those things coming together for Blake Snell.
Yeah.
I hate to come in between Enos Harris and Nick Pollock talking about pitching because what
not
I
gonna do
have
that this weekend at
what
all,
I
are
what
we?
I have to add to this discussion is that you guys mentioned Blake Snell like kind of slow start and doing well better in like June and July, and that's when the weather in San Diego gets really nice. So maybe Blake Snell just doesn't like April weather in San Diego. I'm just saying it's really
Nobody really likes April weather in San Diego.
that's what I'm saying. It's really nice in June. So that's all I have to contribute to this conversation about pitching quality. So I want to make sure we don't spend all of our time. We got it. There's a lot of pitches to cover. We are
Deciding if Blake Snell is
literally in the
29th
first
or 31st.
18 pitchers out of like 75. We got a long way to go. This
Wait till we
episode
get
is
to
absolutely
46.
going a little long. The only thing that's
SP3.
you're okay.
Thanks. You let me out here, buddy.
So the other one there was Logan Webb.
Yeah,
I
so
actually moved him up a little bit after this. I put him around 20 or so.
But-
yeah, but
but-
aren't there like these like pack horse, like the big innings guys that are boring that like will give you a bunch of
I'm
innings?
hoping that the slider
Castillo,
that we saw at
Webb,
the end
isn't
of the
there, like,
year-
an archetype there.
The slider at the end of the year that we saw from Webb showed life again, finally. But I mean,
But he's always just gonna be like.
well,
pretty
right.
good
That's
to
why he's
really
20.
good.
He's good. He's more consistent, I think, than Framber Valdez, who doesn't know how to not throw a sinker to right-handers. I don't get it. He has this amazing cutter, and he just throws sinkers to right-handers.
I've been consistently wrong on him. I think
Yeah,
I've been
right.
wrong on him in both directions at different times.
I don't know.
It's like
He does what he wants.
Every time I'm like, he sucks.
Miles
man.
Rangloson.
Yeah,
There we
no,
go.
I mean
He has a
that's
second
impossible. So let me ask you guys. We're gonna move on.
Every time I'm like, he's good.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
Yeah,
we're gonna
sure.
move. We're gonna move
Oh,
on from this
6
here.
in a
We're
row.
gonna
It's
move
great.
on from
Okay,
this
yeah.
here. But what I want to know from both of you.
Sorry.
So we had, like I said, 8 pitchers go within, 7 pitchers going in the first 40 picks, and then we have 12 pitchers going from picks 50 to 70. So rounds 5 and 6. Do you guys feel that this is the area to maybe target your first or first 2 starting pitchers?
yeah.
Rounds 5 and 6. There's more value here than potentially trying to go after and get 2 of those top 7.
Absolutely. I mean, I find myself even Pablo Lopez almost fell to me in the 5th round. And I'm like, that's my 6th starter.
right, you don't have the,
That's great. Eno's like looking
No, just highlight.
at Miles's notes like he's in history in 10th grade.
Yeah, these
But I mean, it's interesting. Like Max Fried for me, I have belief in. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should be putting more risk on the forearm injury that he had for a lot of the season. But I mean, there are so many of these young guys. There's Yuri Perez. There's Grayson Rodriguez.
You're going into a different tier. We're still talking
Oh,
about
no.
50 and
I'm
70.
sorry. I
in the
meant
tier.
We're talking about 50 and 70. 50
I
to
know,
70.
but to my 50 and 70. Okay, fine. Grayson Rodriguez is here. Tarek Skubal is here. Those guys are very much in that. I feel like there's a range of other arms
Sure.
too that went into the next range.
Sure, and we'll
But
get to them.
they're all
Eno,
clumped together.
Eno, well, we still have you here. The 50 to 70 range. Do you feel?
He's not going anywhere.
No, I know. That was kind of like wishful thinking.
Why would we still
Like
the next minute or two?
50 to
I heard
70,
it.
50 to 70. These 11 pitchers. You feel good about targeting these guys going into your draft, saying round 5 and 6. I want to get some of this group.
I should let you have your show. I'm sorry.
No,
I
this is
had
the
like
best. Are
very
you kidding me?
specific Blake Snell propaganda I wanted to pursue, but this group I think is amazing. And I had someone send me a board where they did 2 hitters and they did 6 pitchers in a row.
From rounds 3 to 8.
Yeah, and
How'd you feel about it?
I loved it.
All right, so there you go. Get your. It's
Although
almost.
Your inner
it
John
started-
Metzeler.
It started with Acuna, so I was like,
Oh yeah.
Oh well, that makes
it's like
So-
yeah.
pretty
So he's from
awesome,
the one
yeah.
spot then, and just kind of.
I know. Toby from Batflip Crazy is not in this room. He
Yeah,
coined
he always-
he coined pocket aces.
But now
in
it's pocket
barf.
hitters.
He
But
always
now,
did it in
but
barf.
now,
Pocket
you know,
kings?
saying pocket hitters 1, 2, and then go get 6 starting pitchers, and that's a roster
think
stretch.
there's
That's
a
to
pocket
worry about.
jacks.
Someone might win the Cy Young in this group.
Oh, you heard it here first. Someone
Someone could
might
win
win the Cy Young
right?
in
yeah.
this group of
Yeah, yeah.
pitchers that includes
Obviously.
the guy who's absolutely
have an
winning the
award
Cy
for
Young
Cy
in the
Young in
NL
fantasy.
already this year. All right, so Eno Saris, everyone, thank you
Hey,
so much.
Sarah, thank you so much.
I want to point out that the last time we had a big Nick Pollock, Eno Saris segment on the First Pitch Arizona podcast, edition, was at the end of the 2021 season when Robbie Ray had his amazing season. I don't remember who was on which side of the debate, and it doesn't matter. What I want to point out is Robbie Ray went out and had like a fine season. He struck out 212 batters and had a 3.71
We were
ERA.
both right.
So the point is, Blake Snell next year is probably gonna be fine. He is gonna be a pitcher, and he will be good.
120 innings with like a 360.
120 innings
Why
and a
do you want
360
that?
ERA, and I'm taking credit for that as my original thoughts, and no one else, definitely not Eno Saris, said that in this room. All right, so the next group, we have so many more pitchers to talk about. We have so many more. You get to the mid rounds, right? So rounds 5 and 6, it's still kind of early in your draft. There's still plenty of amazing hitters. Just for some context, we're talking about guys like C.J. Abrams, Josh Young, Adley Rushman, Paul Goldschmidt, Jazz Chisholm, Matt McClain, Jordan Walker. These are some of the hitters that are going in that same range. I missed many more, but those are guys you're passing up to draft the Pablo Lopez's, Tyler Glasnow's, Logan Webb's, George Kirby's, right? So now moving on to this next group. We're talking rounds 7 through 9. So again, kind of a small pocket of rounds, but it just keeps going and going later. So we're talking around 7 through 10. A lot of pitchers here. I'm not going to name them all. There are 18 pitchers that go during this stretch of rounds 7 through 10. Who stands out to you of pitchers that are being drafted, and is this a range that you want to be drafting pitchers from? And also, I know you're going to say Cole Reagan, so we can do him like last. Is there anyone that's not Cole Reagan's? I'm going to challenge you. Is there anyone that's not Cole Reagan's?
There's someone named Roll Kagans.
Also,
that I think
congratulations,
is
Cole
great.
Reagan's, for getting that ring.
Yeah, that's great.
The Rangers couldn't have done it without Aroldis Chapman. They couldn't have gotten Aroldis Chapman without you. So congratulations.
Don't bring Aroldis into this. Bobby Miller. I mean, honestly he only went that late because I thought he was already drafted.
He went
in
107th in one draft and 75th in the other. I
Yeah.
think it's likely to say he'll probably be like a round
75th.
6, round 7 guy.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Bobby Miller. I think his slider just gets better as a swing and miss pitch. I think he throws hard enough that even if he doesn't have the most incredible swings, strike stuff on it, he's just going to get better. Especially pitching for the Dodgers, I think is okay. What do you think, Miles? Is it okay pitching for the Dodgers?
Honestly, I would say yes, but this was kind of a rough year when it came to injuries and everything.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? We have this amazing crowd here. I want to ask you all, who do you guys want Nick to talk about in this group? You guys can look at the
this
sheet
is the
right
best
there.
way of doing this.
From Framber Valdez to Tanner Bybee. Who do you guys want us to talk about? And please, someone get Kimball Crossley a copy of this list. I want to hear who he wants us to talk about too. Anyone?
Just shout it
there.
out.
Yeah, tell us who you want us to talk about.
Blake Snell.
That's not in this group. Thank you, Jake, for mentioning Blake Snell. Eno Saris is coming back
Security.
to the microphone.
Security, please.
Yamamoto. Someone wants us to talk about Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who went around pick 90 to 100. Is that just sort of
I haven't
take a shot
obviously
time?
I haven't spent a ton of time watching him. It's kind of hard to do it also relative to major league talent. However, everything I've seen and read is showcasing someone with 4 pitches that are great. Swing and miss stuff obviously in there. Good forkball, a really good slider, around low 90s, hard mid 90s fastball. And what's most impressive about this to me is just kind of look at Senga a bit. You have a fastball that wasn't overpowering, right? It was actually, I think, one of his worst pitches was that 4-seamer. A cutter that he got for strikes a ton wasn't a big swing and miss pitch. But I could honestly say is likely linked to Yamamoto's or close to that. And then you also have a splitter. Obviously, that was really good with Senga. They got a lot of strikeouts. Yamamoto has a splitter here. But Yamamoto has a low walk rate, and Senga didn't. And that, to me, speaks to better command of all 4 pitches. And that just creates a fantastic floor for Yamamoto. I see him as relatively safe here. I'm fine with it. I think, I have him at 27 personally, or I think it's 26 now, something like that.
Without getting too into it, because we won't know who he's playing for quite some time, and you have plenty of time to change your rankings. But is he context dependent? Like, does it matter who he signs with?
Not really. I imagine a team that signs him isn't going to be the worst situation ever.
Okay, if the Rockies sign, I'm just kidding. Who else do you guys want us to talk about besides Yoshinobu Yamamoto? Anyone else?
I want to say Bob Miller's really
Eflin? I heard Eflin. Zach Eflin, who, by the way, I just want to point out. So one of the notes that we have here is where they finished in 2023. Zach Eflin finished as the 4th ranked starting pitcher in standard Yahoo 5x5 leagues. 4th ranked. The only pitchers who did better than him this year in pure performance were Garrett Cole, Spencer Strider, and Blake Snell. So how do you feel about Zach Eflin going into 2024?
The way I see Zach Eflin is he added a new pitch with his cutter that was surprisingly great. It's kind of hard. I think he's fine. I think his skills overall are good. I don't see his skills on the same level as other guys around him. I feel like he got the most out of his skills this year to have the season he just had. I feel like it was a peak season. I think he's relatively safe. I want to imagine that his injury history that he had before is kind of gone at this point. As enough to say that the general injury risk is pretty much just what Eflin has now. So I want to say the skills around him are better, that I hope will get squeezed out of them to be better than Eflin, who needed to do more with what he had for his recent success. I still like it. I do wonder if the Rays if they have a healthier team and more of a full repertoire, an arsenal of starters, rotation of starters, that's the word I'm looking for, that they won't have to push Eflin as much as they had to this year. So they might take a small step back with him. I'm not really going to read too much into that. Eflin's fine. He's good. I just don't think he carries the same. I see that 4th rank and I just go, I don't think he's going to do that again. And I think there's higher, right. But I think there's a higher chance. This is the point though. I think there's a higher chance of the guys that are around him of actually achieving that than him.
Fair point. I will say, if you are on the fence about whether to draft Eflin or not, do it, because it opens a whole world of kind of not, but family-friendly team names, because there's so much you can do with the last name Eflin. So just if you're not sure, if you're choosing between like Zach Eflin or like Joe Ryan ain't helping your team name problem. I'm telling you, Zach Eflin is. So Again, I'm bringing a lot to this podcast
So
from an
much.
analysis standpoint. One more name from the group, but while you guys figure out who's going to shout out a name, Nick, are you more likely to draft 2 pitchers in rounds 5 and 6, so that previous group of from Logan Webb to Walker Buehler, or are you more likely to draft 2 pitchers from this 7 to 10 group? Like, which one would you want to attack more?
Well, it's probably gonna be 7 to 10, just because personally, I think the hitters of the drafts are starting to hit that cliff around the 6th round, and then it's like, okay, I gotta shift at this point.
Okay.
So it really depends on how the draft flows with hitters. If Pablo Lopez fell to literally the pick before me in the 5th round, then I'm going to take Pablo Lopez all day in the 5th round.
So it's for you, it's kind of more like, how does the draft play out in terms of where the hitter value is? And
Absolutely.
then once the hitter value dries up, that's when you're attacking and
Yep.
starting pitching. Okay, cool. One last name. Anyone else from this round? From Framber Valdez to Tanner Bibby, this 7 to 10. Framber Valdez to Tanner Bibby, round 7 to 10.
We have a trio. I agree with him.
Okay, anyone?
No, that's not me. No, don't.
Oh, Eno has something. Eno is no.
Okay, let's
that's
talk
good.
about
That's
all 3.
a fun one.
Yeah, let's talk about all 3. And
so-
thank you, Eno Sayers, for a fantastic recommendation, and this group back here. The recommendation we got was to talk about a trio of pitchers who are probably very similar, and that was Tanner Bybee and 2 other people that Nick probably remembers who were mentioned.
Gavin Williams and Brian Will. I
Perfect.
got you, buddy.
Look at that.
So yeah, this is a fun conversation, I think, about young starters in general, and I think something that I've really taken away from this past year and just has been formulating over the last 3-4 years is the thing that I like the most from elite starters is an elite 4-seamer. I think it's just the most consistent foundational thing there is. Working with Kyle this year on PLV, noticing that Brian Woo's 4-seamer is incredible. And I love the fact that I saw starts this year where he was figuring out a sinker that he actually jammed to right-handers, and that's a wonderful addition with that. And then there's a cutter and a slider that are both actually getting there. He's had some starts where he did.
Sometimes on both of our systems because it's lumped.
It's weird. It's weird.
It's lumped. We need to separate them.
We do. We got it. This is Eno talking about our systems of modeling, and he's pointing at me, but he should be pointing at Kyle.
Yeah,
I'm
so
just saying
basically
right
talking
now.
about how Stuff Plus and PLV both have some blind spots. I'm sure they'll
The bad
talk
things
about.
are my fault.
Yeah, that's the voice of
And-
Kyle Bland, of course, the brain of PLV.
So
right here.
perfect,
So thank you
perfect
so much
segue,
for coming
because
here.
we actually brought Kyle Bland up here because we're going to start a segment. Yeah, Kyle Bland, director of analytics, instrumental, as we get the clown horn for Kyle Bland, instrumental in creating PLV. And we're going to start a segment which I was trying to come up with a good name for, and I've settled on the Rubber Bland Man because that's the only... So, Kyle... as our the forefather of PLV, as someone who really knows pitching and knows the analytics side of it, I just want to know, before we kind of get into the back half of this draft, which we have 10 minutes for, I wonder how that happened. I guess we're gonna go a little long on this one, part 2. Kyle, who are some pitchers that, from your experience with modeling, from your experience with projections, are people that you see as great values in this draft, people that you're excited for?
Talking through some of the guys that we've mentioned today, kind of like Nick said, pacing yourself and going for hitters those first couple rounds, I'm absolutely all for it. 1, 2, 3, I'm trying to just go straight hitters. And then especially, I got to get in on our next mock because, getting Logan Webb and Pablo Lopez at that 4-5 pivot, I'm all for that. I would love that as my SP1, SP2. Those are 2 guys that are great for different reasons. Like you mentioned, Webb, I'm a big fan. I think he's got very consistent stuff. I think he's just a guy, especially if you're in a quality start league, he's really just going to rack up those innings per start, and that's huge. Pablo Lopez, we saw it in the postseason. He's just got some wicked pitches to play with. And it's
5.
Yeah, and it's so good. And part of me is I want to draft guys that I want to watch pitch too.
Yes.
The fun
thank
factor
you so much.
it's so much there.
You need to have fun. It's fantasy baseball. Get a guy that you want to root for.
Wait, a Minnesota Twins pitcher did well in the postseason?
Yeah, he did.
The one.
He did
Wow.
so well.
Just the one.
'Cause he's
Wow.
Pablo Lopez, and he's the best, and has
Incredible.
an incredible 4-seamer right now. That's
All right,
amazing.
so outside it, so that 4 or 5 turn, Webb, Pablo, anyone a little bit deeper or a little later than those guys?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Miller boys, Bobby and Bryce. I'm a huge
Let's
fan
go.
of Bryce. I'm super high on him. I think he's got just an absolutely dynamite four seam. The slider grades out super well at PLV2. You guys already touched on Bobby Miller earlier, that he's just got a ton of things, a ton of weapons that he can pick through that will work really well. And especially like the Dodgers are a very smart organization.
Yeah, they
know how
are.
to get the
Oh, now you like
Got you, yeah. They know how to get the best out of their pitchers for, the 30
Send me
innings they
merch.
have.
I love you guys.
Yeah. But so those are some of the guys that I'm particularly looking at. I hope none of my league mates are listening, but I like a lot of those. I'm also shockingly high on a lot of the younger guys, Grayson and Yuri.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone should be high on them.
Yep.
Speaking of very fun, just electric stuff, but I think that it's electric in a consistent way. I don't think it was like small sample fluke. I think it's something that you can really bank on and go forward with.
Right. So to build on that, right, about Grayson and Yuri, excellent four-seamers. I think even with Yuri, his four-seamer should be elevated a little bit more. Grades really well, and honestly, the locations of it weren't that great this year, and he still had success. And 2 amazing breaking balls with it as well. To get a ton of whiffs, he just needs to get a few more strikes with it, and he's all good. So going back to the original question of Woo and Bybee and Gavin Williams, I have found myself really leaning on four-seamers a ton. So even near Bryce, I'm going to throw in there too with Brian Woo. Both of them have electric ones, incredible ones. I think Brian Woo has like the best VAA as well. If I remember looking
They're
at
both-
this,
they're both really up there,
insanely
yeah.
good. Also, I think
Give me like any Mariners starting pitcher.
Also they'll go a lot in season. So I have those guys above Bybee and Williams, and between Williams and Bybee, I just don't like Tanner Bybee that much. I think his slider is good, his command of it isn't great, and the other pitches are not. The fastball doesn't do enough, and everything else, like the command of the changeup, is not good enough to me. The curveball he could not locate enough, and I watched them a ton, and I can't tell you how frustrating it was because this was someone battling himself and not the batter constantly. He could not sequence effectively. He didn't know where a slider was going to go. He tried to throw the right fastball, and it would just be a wild one over here. And he spoke a lot of that volatile guy. I actually have Tanner Bybee higher than I think I normally would because I need to recognize the results were better than what I'm saying, and oftentimes I'm missing something about that, and I'm not just going to say, well, I'm going to throw away all of that data just because I feel like he's more volatile. So fine, he goes to the end of it, but Gavin Williams, I think that four-seamer is just going to get better. I think that his hold on to the end of class. This is what I'm. So here's
alleging that.
So
Gavin
right, so
Williams'
the
fastball
only
is the best
argument
of
I
all
have
his
against
fastballs.
this, right? So Gavin Williams' fastball,
Best fastball of all those fastballs you talk about.
except it's not getting the results quite yet that it should.
Only his best pitch.
And the problem I have right now by Gavin Williams is his slider and curveball sometimes just disappear. And if he's not locating this fastball as well as Miller and Woo is, then he's not going to have those days where he can just survive with that. And that's another skill he needs to get. I don't think that he's going to fail at that. He's inside of my top 40 because of that. And he's ahead of Bybee. He's in the same tier as Woo and Miller. I just think Woo and Miller are in better situations right now. I can trust what they're doing right now and get better too. I saw a game with Bryce Miller locating perfect four-seamers with an unbelievable cutter down and away. Like, it was there. He had 10 strikeouts in 5 innings in that game. And I could see that continuing and getting better. Gavin Williams, I also have a theory about the Cleveland Guardians development. They're so good in the minors, and then when they get to the majors, nothing changes. None of their guys change once they're here. And I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to buy into Gavin Williams taking the leap that I kind of expect Woo and Miller to take.
Jeff, you're gonna let him talk about your Cleveland Guardians like that? Just slander them so dangerously.
You should be angrier than me.
We've made it through our top 36 pitchers, and this is scheduled to go to 11. So we have 12 minutes to talk about another 30 pitchers.
And we want to take questions.
And we want to take questions. So I just want to, because we're at the point in the draft where it's kind of like beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? You're gonna go for the guys that you think have the upside. So from picks 120 on, we'll go actually from 125 on, so we don't include Brian Woo and Gavin Williams in that. Before we ask about specific pitchers, I'm curious. There's a lot of different archetypes of pitcher in this range. There's bounce back candidates. There's injury risks. There's prospects that have shown something exciting, but maybe not all of it. There's Jose Barrios. So which of these pitchers that you see from picks like 120 to 200 are you like? What archetype do you find yourself most gravitating towards drafting?
Yeah. Okay. So I get this every year also of like, who's the next blank? And there's
That's a weird question. What?
No, but
blank what?
Every year there's someone that succeeds in a big way and comes out of nowhere to do it. So who's the next one who's going to do that?
So who's the next Zach Eflin?
Next Zach Eflin, Cole Reagans. You could
Cole
say
Reagans is the next Cole Reagans.
Yeah,
answer
Yuri
is
Perez.
always Cole Reagans.
Well, right. It was
The question
Strider
is
in
also always
previous
Cole
years.
Reagans.
It was Shane Bieber and Tyler Glasnow in
Okay,
previous
so-
years, right? And there's when you think about that, it's always one of 5 things essentially that needs to get better. They either gain velocity in the offseason, they either gain a new pitch that misses bats now, they get an opportunity that they didn't have before, they are healthy again. And there is something else I completely forgot. So
Yeah, command.
command. That sounds good. Yeah, he stopped walking, guys. All of a sudden, beautiful.
Shout
Look
out
at
to
this
the
guy.
person in the crowd. No, shout out to the person in the crowd that's in control.
Oh, look at Jeff over
Thank you,
there.
Jeff.
Good job. So I don't know. Like all these guys have certain reasons to not be successful. Maybe they do get that extra element.
Right, but-
Generally, I'm going to go after the one that's health because health is fine, especially in a 12-teamer if they are healthy. So like.
So
I don't know,
health-
Carlos
so health
Rodon. Like, if he's healthy and throwing 96 in spring training, we're all going to love him. We're all going to just jump in and say, yeah, that was a lost season. I'll take my chances with that one. I don't want to go after Hunter Green. I feel like it's too volatile at this point. Like, he's a cherry bomb. I don't buy that he's just going to click all of a sudden, but maybe he does, but it's also the Cincinnati Reds.
But
and
the
I'm
potential.
I know. I
Dream.
know, but
Dream
here's
big
I think
dreams.
I think one of the major
Don't let your
lessons
dreams
I've
be
learned.
dreams.
Yeah, love that. One of the major
don't sue
lessons
me,
I've
Shia.
learned is to avoid guys that you cannot make decisions on by May 1st. Listing off all of those pitchers before who we picked up through the season is only because we had someone we wanted to drop. And if we fill our teams with guys who have all this potential that we can't drop because maybe it does work out, they go up and they go down, they go up and they go down, then we're not going to get any of those good ones. We're just going to hold on tight. So if we have easy decisions to make, that helps us out massively. And Hunter Green, I don't think is going to be an easy decision to make. You're probably just going to hold on to him and deal with whatever it is. And I don't want that for my teams.
So in the interest of everyone being able to kind of get what they're looking for here today, because there's some 30 pitchers we could talk about, and I'm Nick. I know you can go at least 10 minutes on each of these pitchers, and we don't. I want to sleep tonight at some point. The people in the audience here, we have this chair now open. I want you guys to come up and ask us any question that you have about any pitcher from Sonny Gray on down. We are not taking any Blake Snell questions at this time. So please, whether you want to shout it out from the crowd or whether you want to come up here and ask a specific question about a specific pitcher,
Now's the
we
time.
have time built in for this. David, I see. Get up here,
David
David.
McNichol, come on up.
David, I see you sifting
David,
your
come
seat.
on, David.
I also heard Sarah Sanchez back there. Sarah, what's your question?
Michael King. I don't have a question. I just
Oh.
want to
The question
Statement.
is Michael. It's Michael King question mark.
because I would like to know Nick's take on
Oh, man.
The question is, Nick, what is your take
I
on
don't
Michael
know.
King
I
question
honestly,
mark?
like
Also,
entering
Frank
this
Stanfield's
weekend,
interested.
it's kind of funny. Entering this weekend, I was like in my head, like, all right, make sure Nick, there's no one you have like question marks yourself on. I was like, Michael King though.
That's the question.
So you failed
I
your
know.
own
I
your own
know.
assignment.
Okay, I have answers, but I don't know if he can be a sinker focused guy and get away with it as much. I saw games where his changeup wasn't quite that great. Slider is so filthy, but then essentially he turns into a sinker slider guy, and that's like Brady Singer, and that's really annoying. Four seamers upstairs though is a 2-strike thing that he can do, and that's pretty cool too. I like him. I think he's someone you'll be able to make a quicker decision on as well. I think the Yankees like him, and that's a good thing too. Like it or not, despite the Yankees being terrible this year, they still were a winning record, and you will get wins if you are consistently starting for the Yankees. So I'm generally high on him. I have him at 58 right now. I'm probably going to have him closer to 50, I think, closer to draft season. But he isn't inside of that. I expect him to be good the entire way through. I think especially having that mentality of being like, look, if this isn't panning out, I need to go. I need to go off and get something else. I think Michael King kind of fits into that, but I am so excited to be wrong about him, and he just soars into the sunset.
So for the entirely uninformed who look at Michael King as like a long reliever stretched into a starter, is he more or less exciting than what Seth Lugo has turned into?
Yes, more exciting.
More exciting. Love it. Okay, fantastic. Anyone else? What other questions? What other pitchers do you guys want us to talk about? Because now's your chance. Yes. Mitch Keller.
Oh,
I
no,
like
not
this.
him, not
I like this.
There we go.
He was
Mitch
the other
Keller.
one.
Kyle,
Kyle, do something, please.
What do you?
Oh, right.
Kyle.
How do you feel about Mitch
Let me just pull up.
Keller? So like sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
When you go out to like eat with friends and people don't know what to order, you have to order really slowly to give them time. So in order to give Nick and Kyle time to formulate their thoughts on Mitch Keller, I just want to say hello to everyone here and all you fantastic folk. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Nick, what are your thoughts on Mitch Keller?
Mitch Keller confuses me, and he's weird, and I don't like weird.
I did not give you enough time.
No, no, that's actually what I say all the time about him.
Thoughtful.
Look, here's the thing. I saw multiple starts of Mitch Keller just having the greatest command ever. If you want to watch a game, it's inside of May against the Orioles. He's putting four seamers here, sinkers over there, cutters over here. And what's so annoying to me is I don't feel like he has that pitch that is just like always there for him. He still doesn't get swing strikes enough with his slider and his curveball. And it just opens the door for just these bad outings all the time. And I think he's going to have another great stretch. I also want to hope that I believe his Tread Athletics that's working with him will help him out again. And maybe he just shows up and does great things. But I don't want to do it. I feel like he's a headache again. And I'm ready to be wrong.
You were talking about an outing, the Baltimore outing. 7 innings, 13 strikeouts, no runs.
He deserved all of
and
it.
threw 70
That's the
strikes
thing.
on 93 pitches.
The hardest thing we do, though, guys deserve that game, and then they deserve to not be good the next game.
Wow, what?
I know.
Deserve?
Yeah.
Kyle,
Yeah.
thumbs up or thumbs down on Mitch Keller?
I think he's fine. He's got like
So,
a
like,
kind of a
thumb
kitchen
sideways?
thing. Yeah, exactly. The thumb sideways. He's got, 6 pitches that he'll throw. He'll fling it around whatever. Like you think that it works, that whatever he has that day he can use. And I do believe in the slider. I know you have some
I
concerns
want
about
it to be good. It just doesn't always show up.
It rates out really well by my stuff. He's got an above average sinker, but that's not saying much. Our stuff. I think I think that's the thing. Like it's not like exciting to say, but I think he's like an average to above average pitcher. I don't think he's great.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like the sexiest thing, but
Right.
I think he'll be a useful pitcher for you.
Yeah, he's a cherry bomb. And I don't want to draft cherry bombs.
We've already talked about so Max Fried.
Max Fried,
Yeah.
we did not really talk about
I
Max
breezed
Fried.
through him. Max Fried, it's hard because, again, we all got to be doctors for the next 5 months, right? Like, okay, forearm injury, then came back from it, but then it was a blister. It was the first thing that we were really concerned about with Max Fried, right? And in year after year, this guy's command is incredible, and he showcases this with his fastball and his sinker, and then slider and curveball improved, and really the changeup actually getting added was a huge deal for him, and it returned this year too. It's really just about how much do you believe it's a time bomb of him getting hurt again. If not, I mean, honestly, if he's fine out of camp, we've talked about it before with Glass now, like, okay, let's say you get 120 innings on Max Fried. Those are going to be quality innings with a lot of wins, and you're going to love that. So I see him as relatively safe in that way because you won't regret the innings you do get from Fried. And who knows, maybe he just goes 160, 70 innings and everything's okay. So, but if you're terrified, again, I understand, of the forearm, by all means. I think we'll get a better idea of it in the spring.
Why do you hate
Ha!
Brandon Pfaadt and why do you love Brian Bayo?
First
Okay,
of all,
so the question is why does Nick want nothing but harm on Brandon Pfaadt's family, and why does he? I'm just kidding. The
That is
question
so
was about
aggressive.
the question was about Brandon Pfaadt, who Nick has ranked outside of the top 100. He was picked at pick 224. And what does Nick see in Brian Bayo, who Nick has ranked at 45 and was picked about 20 picks ahead of Brandon Pfaadt. So Brandon Pfaadt, Brian Bayo.
yeah, we were actually talking about this in the car about Brandon because we're wondering what car he drives.
Oh my
right?
God. Yeah, this was like this is the influence you have on me. I made a really bad Brandon Pfaadt joke.
There it
was
is.
Horrible.
And as you can
Brandon
see,
Fott,
all
if
of the
you drive a
groans in the
Volkswagen
laughter.
Passat, I respect you so much more. Okay,
But he is the Passat. I actually don't know cars that well. Is that good or not? I don't know.
in the interest of teaching, of making sure we understand brevity, we have 2 minutes. I want to get to at least one more question. So Brandon
Okay.
Fott, Brian Bayo.
Slider is really good. I think I underrated it a good amount. I don't know how much I like the fastball, and I don't know how much I can believe in the rhythm he just had of his fastball command. So when that's really it, and sometimes the changeup shows up, and that's cool. But I don't believe in that fastball being an overwhelming fastball. So that's really just, it breaks the Huascar-Ynoa rule, which is you lean too much on one really good breaker and nothing else. And that makes me worried a little bit about Fott.
And Brian Bayo.
Bayo had a new slider that he was introducing at the end of the year. He got a lot of whiffs on it, and that's been the thing we've been waiting for because the sinker and changeup combo is great. It's just not elite. But you see a situation of a lot of innings coming for Bayo. You see the youth that suggests development moving forward, improved slider, and with a slider with a good swing strike rate, then all of a sudden, wait, you've got 2 solid pitches you get constantly and that big whiff pitch that turns him into 25% plus strikeout rate guy potential with a lot of innings for the Red Sox, who hopefully are better this year. That's a really great combination, and I think the best thing you can do in drafts is go for guys that have a lot of volume that you're cool with, who also have potential to be much better. That's your George Kirby, right? That's your Zach Wheeler and Sandy Alcantara of years before. Those were guys that we were fine with, who also had that ceiling, and then they reached it. And Bayo, to me, actually profiles out like that.
All right, so last pitcher, lightning round, because we're up on time. So lightning round from First Pitch Podcast hosts this year, one of 2. We have Jake Crumpler and we have Casey Bubba. So from First Pitch Podcast host Casey Bubba, by the way, noted Giants fan, has asked you to talk about
Fans.
Oh yeah, absolutely, both of them.
One's wearing the jersey, and you're pointing to the other one.
Specifically, Casey Bubba is the one who asked about noted Giants fan asked you to talk about Emmett Sheehan. That's the pitcher he most wanted you to talk about.
I am so curious. So the slider was really good at the end. It just like showed up. We're like, wait, hold on a second. You were supposed to just have a fastball, and that's really it. Thing is, the fastball doesn't miss enough bats, I don't think. I could be wrong about this. Kyle will have a better answer, I think, about Emmett Sheehan. But if that slider is legit all of a sudden, and the changeup also showed up too, like that might work. I do wonder if the Dodgers will give him a lot of innings out of the gate. I don't know if they do. We don't know what they're doing this offseason. Well, eventually in season, but that means I don't draft him. I pick him up in season, but not draft him.
That was the
Yeah.
shortest answer Nick's ever given.
I know. Now I got to supplement it. I don't know. I don't see it with Sheehan. I think, especially that slider, I'm not a huge fan from what I've seen from kind of working through the background of PLV. It's got pretty average movement, and he locates it kind of high in the zone.
Oh, yeah.
He like hangs
There
up.
was like 2 starts where it was good, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, but I mean, like, how many starts did he have?
Yeah, we're right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a real thing that's gonna happen.
Yeah, so like I believe like it's a pretty small sample to work from, but I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna let that be someone else's headache. And if it turns out great for them, like, good job, your faith has been rewarded. But I'd rather look for most other people.
We've got a request for one more from the crowd. This is full lightning round. Nick, you have 30 seconds. Which pitcher? Andrew Abbott. Nick, you have 30 seconds on the clock. Go.
Four-seamer was good early on, and then it got worse. And I don't trust him to get into another rhythm again. We saw what happens when he gets out of it. And it's also Cincinnati, and I'm just not a huge fan of it right now. Yeah, it was pristine command and everything, and then he lost a little bit of that, and then his stuff wasn't good enough to kind of get through it.
Kyle Bland, he gave you 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's a great slider, pretty mid fastball, and that's a terrible ballpark. Like, if he gets hit around, those balls are going yard.
Not crazy.
Incredible, fantastic. Everyone who's here, thank you all so much. For everyone who's listening at home, thank you. And for those of you listening at home, come to First Pitch Arizona. This is an amazing, amazing environment. We have 3 more amazing days. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Hey,
Incredible. Dude, yeah.